Hello, welcome to Jason the Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. In today's video, I'm continuing this new series that I did this last week, and that is ranking all 95 Best Picture winners from the Oscar history and giving my thoughts on them. So now I'm going to do number 85 through 76 on my list, so stay tuned to see my thoughts here in Jason the Old Millennial. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well here on a Monday late afternoon, early evening period. Bringing you another list, another ranking. This time, my ranking all the Oscar-winning Best Picture winners, which I've seen all 95 from the very first one that came in 1929 to last year's winner, which is technically 2022 winner, basically. So from 29 to 2022, basically. And before I get to my list, just want to say, really feeling terrible this last weekend, seeing what happened in Israel, and just, it's such a horrible situation. It's been one of the worst situations I've ever seen in my life. The absolute evil that's happening, the attacks on Israel, the killings of women and children, and yeah, it's totally praying for Israel and supporting them in all this. I have a picture of Jerusalem right over here, if you see on the side wall. My mom was in Israel. I have an Israel hat over here. My mom was in Israel visiting about a year ago or 2 years ago. Anyway, so she was there not too long ago, and I have a lot of stuff from Israel that she bought for me when she came back. And yeah, so it's just gut-wrenching what's going on, and I feel so terrible about what's going on there. Anyways, just so I say, it's definitely been on my mind a lot lately. But saying that, get to my list here. First, on my list, the 85th, my 85th movie on here is the movie Rebecca from 1940. Winning Best Picture. And I know my friend Jake Martin likes this movie quite a lot, but a bit more than I do. And I'm not saying it's like the worst movie ever. I do have it pretty low on my list, and I guess most of that's just, I thought it was kind of just a boring storyline, slow-moving movie. It's an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's the only Alfred Hitchcock movie to win Best Picture, which is almost kind of shocking because it's probably one of his least known movies, and most people probably never seen or heard of this movie, I'm guessing. You know, there's so many great Hitchcock movies out there, like Psycho and Rear Window and Vertigo. I mean, that deserve the Best Picture more than Rebecca, in my opinion. So it's weird that this is the one that won him the Best Picture, though he didn't win Best Director. He never won Best Director Oscar, which is kind of shocking too, considering he's one of the greatest directors of all time. Obviously, you know, what do you want to call it, the king of thriller movies or whatever they want to call him. Anyways, and this is more of a gothic, like, mystery movie with this girl who gets married after barely knowing this guy. She like gets married to him, and he takes her back to his home, and his first wife like died, and so there's this, you know, big mansion kind of thing he's rich and he lives in, and there's this maid who's mysterious, and then there's this question, how did his wife die, you know, did he murder her, or did the maid, or, you know, so it's just kind of this murder mystery type I don't know if I want to call it thriller, but definitely, you know, it's supposed to be a little scary or whatever. And yeah, it just don't really remember a whole lot about it, except that I didn't really care for it. So I have it here at number 85, Rebecca. 84, I have a really old movie called Cimmaron, which won Best Picture in 1931. So it's within the first, you know, 5 Best Picture, maybe like the 4th Best Picture winner, I believe. So yeah, pretty old. It's considered the first Western to win Best Picture, actually. And the movie is this family, basically, who, and the husband, he basically leaves the family to go to Oklahoma because Oklahoma just became a territory. And so there's a big land rush for Oklahoma. You can get land for pretty cheap. Anyway, and they're just starting communities down there in Oklahoma territory. And so he goes down there to get land and then brings his family a little bit later. And then they have this most of the movie, of course, and then the movie takes place in this Oklahoma territory that they're just starting anyways. And he kind of becomes the, well, he starts a newspaper publication, basically of this like new town that's starting. And he also becomes like the sheriff and the pastor of the church. So he has all these different hats that he holds in this town. And there's like some shootouts and all this. And then after all this happens, he then leaves again because there's like a war going on. I forget if it's, I don't know if it's like the Mexican War or some kind of war is going on. So he leaves to go do that. And then the wife has to take over the newspaper publication and raise the family. Anyways, and that's kind of the movie. Again, my biggest problem is just that I hate the fact that the guy leaves the family. He leaves his wife and children, to do this thing, and they have to, and the wife has to work very hard because she's a woman, so no one, really believes in her, to run a publication, whatever. So, but she continues this publication and also has to raise her family, and so I mean, to me, it's a terrible thing that the husband just leaves his family constantly. It's not really a good thing for a husband. You need to stay with your family, And so I really despise the movie because of that sense. Not despise movie, but it really hurts the movie to me. That character, anyways, and all that, and it's just, I don't know, it's just not exciting enough movie for me to really put any higher on my list, I guess. Again, old, kind of forgettable movie. The only interesting thing I think about the movie I think about is the main actor, the husband character, is preaching a service, and he's also like, I think he's like the sheriff or something too, but he's preaching a service, and some outlaws are in the crowd, and they want to kill him. And so as he's preaching service, the outlaws like pull out a gun, and he pulls out a gun from the pulpit and shoots the outlaws. And I was like, man, that's like the coolest thing a preacher's ever done in the history of movies. I was like, I can't imagine my own preacher pulling out a gun in service and shooting somebody, and everybody's like, that's just insane to me, but it's kind of cool. Anyways, but yeah, so I have Cimmaron at 84 on my list. Number 83, I have the next movie actually after Cimmaron, and that is Grand Hotel, which won Best Picture in 1932. And Grand Hotel is kind of an interesting movie because it takes place in one big hotel, fancy hotel, and it's a bunch of different famous actors put together, and it kind of follows these different storylines going on in this hotel at one time. And it's kind of groundbreaking for the fact that it has all these huge stars, and they didn't really put that many big stars in each movie. Usually you just want one big star to star in your movie and kind of carry the movie. And to have multiple stars, of course, that costs a lot of money because you have to pay them, money. Plus, stars don't want to share. Your big stars usually don't, at this time anyways, don't want to share credit with the other people. They want to be the number one name, And so it's always hard to do this. So this is kind of somewhat groundbreaking at the time to... I know now I forget now the name of all the people, but one of the famous actresses here was kind of a German actress who was famous in silent films, and this was like one of her first talkie movie, so it was a big deal. And she has this famous line, "I want to be alone," and I think her name's Garber, Greta Garber, I think, or something like that, and that was like a big deal. And they even promoted the movie saying, Garbo speaks, and that was like a big deal. Like, oh, this silent film actress who has a German accent, we don't know if she can do talkie movies, and this kind of proved that she can, and she still became a pretty big actress after talkies. But that was a big deal. Her and I want to say John Barrymore is in it, who was a very famous actor at the time, and his brother Lionel Barrymore is also in it and has the best character in the movie, in fact. And Lionel Barrymore, from It's a Wonderful Life, playing Mr. Potter. But this is a younger Barrymore, of course. And he plays an interesting character who's like dying, I think. And so he's taking all his money and just spending it all on this hotel. And very interesting character. But yeah, overall though, wasn't really that hooked into all the storylines. And again, a little boring for me in a sense. And so I downgraded it. It wasn't totally exciting. Didn't care for there's a romantic relationship in there that didn't really totally make sense. And yeah, overall, yeah, just a ho-hum movie. So I have here 83, The Grand Hotel. Number 82 is the second silent film to win Best Picture, except this one didn't really need to be silent film. It was kind of the gimmick of the movie, and that the movie is called The Artist, which won Best Picture in 2011. If you remember this movie, it's a French movie, actually. Mostly the two main actor and actresses are French actors, which is good because it's not film, so they didn't know English, so we didn't have to, have them, learn English or anything. They just had to do because they're playing Americans, I believe, in the movie, American actors, anyways. And yeah, it's an interesting movie. I don't know why it took off so much. It's a really boring movie, I think. And a lot of that's because it's, like I said before, I'm not a big fan of silent movies. So I remember watching some movie theater and just thought it was really boring. And I can remember, hearing people, you can hear people eating popcorn and stuff because it was a silent movie. So it's the first time I've ever experienced that, watching a movie in total silence and you can hear everybody eating around you. It was very odd. Um, it's not an original idea. It's kind of the same storyline as like A Star Is Born, where you have like an actress or the lead lady who wants to be an actress, and then she gets a relationship with a famous silent film actor, and then it kind of the film industry and the movies like get into talkies, and so then that transition from silent film talkies. So it has a similar feel to A Star Is Born or what's the Singing in the Rain has a kind of similar storyline. So yeah, it feels like unoriginal kind of story to me, and in silent films gimmick that didn't really work for me. And yeah, so it's one that I just never gone back to, didn't care for that much. And that is The Artist at number 82 on my list. Number 81 on my list is I believe the third movie to win Best Picture, another really old one. And this is All Quiet on the Waterfront. I got that wrong. All Quiet on the Western Front. I wrote it down wrong on my paper. From 1930. And there's a remake that just came out a year ago, a German-made movie that has kind of a remake of this movie. That nominated for Best Picture and won like 3 or 4 Oscars. And anyways, but this is the original. Of course, it's based off of a book. It's interesting because it's taken from the German perspective, which we don't usually get the German perspective of war. This is World War One. Usually it's through the American or maybe British perspective, but to see it through the, not the Allies, but the Axis power, whatever, the enemy, it's kind of interesting idea. And it definitely was like, here it's 1930, and this is a very anti-war movie. So it's interesting to get such a dark anti-war movie so early on, of course. And this is before World War II would start. So we're just doing World War I movies. And it was short enough. World War I ended, I think, around 1917. So we're talking about 1930, a time when people still remember the war. And a lot of the stuff that's used in the movie was used in World War I. So we do get a lot of images of World War I weaponry and of the uniforms and all that. So it's very authentic to World War I. So that's definitely very cool. It's not a movie. It's a very depressing movie. So it's never a movie I cared that much for. It's groundbreaking for the time, definitely. And the World War I footage definitely was like pretty incredible for the time. Still, it's just war movies can be very depressing. Seeing people get, especially World War I's when we start machine guns and you got the whole trench warfare. And so there's a lot of footage of just people running over this land and getting mowed down by machine guns. And after a while, you're just like, man, I get tired of just watching people get killed by machine guns. It's just depressing to watch anyways. And which war is very terrible and depressing in that sense. So it definitely gives you that feel of how terrible war is. Yeah, it's not one I can ever go back to. It's just not one I'm excited about. Even the new one, it definitely was horrifying. It's definitely one I can never go back to, though really well made. So, it's definitely worth a watch just to see, one of the great World War I movies, but not one I consider one of my favorites. So at 81, it's All Quiet on the Western Front. Number 80, I got a movie called The Great Ziegfried, which won Best Picture in 1936. This is about Ziegfried, who's a real character, kind of a true story, telling of a guy who was, started the Ziegfried Follies back, I think, probably back in the 20s or something like that. And it was really famous putting on these, these kind of vaudevillian live shows where you have, dances and music acts and comedians, and very popular. Obviously, it's one of the most popular shows ever put together, Ziegfried Follies, and it's about Ziegfried himself and how kind of origin of how he started out and how he created the Ziegfried Follies and how that became a big deal, and kind of his personal life too, like between him and his first wife, who I'm forgetting how the actress who played his first wife in the movie won for Best Actress, even though she was barely on screen. It was one of those interesting wins. And Myrna Loy plays like his second wife in there, so he's having marital trouble. Also, he goes through the Great Depression during the movie. And anyways, and you see him put on this great show again. I love William Wyler, or not William Wyler, William Powell is the main character. Like, he's one of my favorite actors of the 1930s, and he's very good in this movie. I like him a lot. But yeah, it's just when you see the parts where they put on the shows themselves aren't that interesting to modern day audience to me. Like, at the time, I'm sure that was very exciting, the music numbers and all that. But today, they kind of aren't that entertaining. Some highlights though is, I think it's Ray Bolger, I believe his name is does a segment. He does this kind of funny dance segment, which, if you know him, he played the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz, and he's really good physical comedian, and that was kind of cool to see. And also, the real Fanny Brice does a bit here, and Fanny Brice is the real person who, and she's playing herself in this movie, who was a female comedian that was very popular in the Ziegfeld Follies. They made a movie about her, actually, that came out in 1969, called, now I'm forgetting what it's called. I think it's called The Funny Something. Anyways, it was a play. She was played by Barbara Streisand in 1969 for that, I think, or 1968, I think it was, for that movie, which Barbara Streisand won Best Actress playing Fanny Brice. Gosh, it's The Funny Something. Now I'm forgetting the name of that movie. But anyways, so it's kind of cool to see the real Fanny Brice, in the movie. But overall, not that interesting of a movie as far as entertainment value. And not that, yeah, it just didn't do enough for me. So it's fairly low on my list here at 80, The Great Ziegfried. Number 79, we have a little more recent movie. This is called The English Patient, which came out in 1996. And again, this is just a really long, really boring movie about a guy retelling his story to a nurse, and he's all bandaged up, and telling this really tragic story of this love. It's a love story, but it ends tragically. It's not really a happy movie at all, I feel like. And it just takes so darn long to get through, and it's just kind of a boring romance movie. I forget what it's set in. I think some wars going on. I mean, some pretty good performances there, I'll give you. I think Ray Fiennes is in it, playing one of the main characters. Either Rafe or Joseph Fiennes, one of those is playing like the main characters. I think Juliette Binoche wins an Oscar here for Best Supporting Actress. Yeah, there's some good stuff there, but overall, I always think about Seinfeld episode where Elaine hates The English Patient. Everybody loves it. And at one point, she yells at the screen, "Just shut up and die. Stop telling your boring story and just die." And it always makes me laugh, because I think the same thing when I'm watching the movie, like, just die and stop telling your story. Anyways, but yeah, this number 79 on my list, The English Patient. Number 78 is a movie I probably need to watch again, because I've only watched it like one time, and it just didn't do it for me. And that was called A Man for All Seasons, which won Best Picture in 1966. Again, a very forgettable movie amongst a lot of big there's a lot of big movies in the 60s are very well known and famous and people talk about, and this is one of them in the 60s that I feel like no one really talks about. It's not one that, it's ever been, I don't know, it's just kind of a movie that everybody forgot. And again, for me, it's the same way. I've seen it, and yet I forgot most of what happens in that movie, except it's obviously a famous telling, true story of dealing with Henry VIII, and it's dealing with, and I forget his name, but I think his name's Thomas or something like that, who was like the bishop or something like that in that area. And of course, Henry VIII wanted to get a divorce because his wife wasn't producing any male heirs. And of course, it was against the Catholic Church to get divorced. And I believe, the guy, the main character, has to make a decision. Does he side with, the Catholic Church, or does he side with the king, and eventually, and evidently, and overall, he of course sides with the church, his, moral obligation, and gets killed because of it. But yeah, it's a good story in the sense that he wasn't willing to give up his principles, his religious principles, and was willing to die for his faith. So that was good and all that. I just found the movie to be very boring, and again, I might have to watch it again to really get it. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it, but I just remember not caring for it at the time when I saw it, and so it has to be low on my list here at number 78, A Man for All Seasons. All right, number 77, we got All the King's Men, which won Best Picture in 1949. This is a kind of a political movie, and they remade it actually in like the 2000s, and it really bombed with Sean Penn at the lead. But uh, this one very more popular, obviously, uh, and it's a movie it's kind of based on a political figure, which I'm forgetting. I think he's from Louisiana, and it has a similar storyline to it. But it deals with this guy who's running for office, and he's actually a pretty good guy overall, and he's not flashy. He doesn't have any political, people behind him to help, campaign for him. And so, anyways, but then he starts getting fiery and is, more emotional in his speeches. And the movie kind of takes to the eyes of a reporter, kind of following his campaign and reporting on, and a journalist writer, I believe. Anyways, following him, and it's interesting because the whole story kind of takes this guy from being kind of this, like I said, a fairly honest politician, who's very, kind of a just regular guy, kind of, to when he finds out that to win, races, he has to be a little more, dirty in his campaigning. And so he ends up hiring guys that, and they do kind of dirty campaigning and throw dirt at other kind of politicians, and they do bribes and they do illegal stuff. And he starts changing from the honest politician to being a really terrible politician, like most politicians are, being very dirty and behind the scenes, very corrupt. I guess corrupt is the right word. He becomes a very corrupt politician. So it's interesting to see this guy who was good become kind of evil towards the not just a politician, but as a human being during the course of the movie. And you kind of see what happens to him. I won't spoil, but something happens to him at the end. Anyway, so we kind of see this rise and fall of this guy. And again, the performance is pretty good. I'm trying to remember the name of the actor now. I forget, but the actor won Best Actor for this movie. And, it does a good performance, like I said, won Best Actor. And overall, though, again, wasn't totally into the story. And I hate the fact that you like this guy and then you hate him at the end. So I didn't really like the whole arc of the character. Usually I like arc of characters when they are bad and then become good, not good and become bad. It's kind of the opposite of the arc that I like to see. So, and the ending is just kind of, it's not a happy ending. It's not an ending that you just go, oh, I'm satisfied by the story. Anyway, so it's not one I ever go back to in this one. So it's All the King's Men at number 77 on my list. Last movie on this list, at number 76, is a recent movie. Definitely had one of the wildest moments in Oscar history. And this is a movie called Moonlight, which won Best Picture in 2016, which is crazy to think that was that long ago. Gosh, it's been, 7 years since that. And of course, that was the year La La Land was, everybody knew or thought that La La Land was going to win Best Picture, was winning all the awards all the way up to, and it even won Best Director, and it just was on par to win Best Picture. And then they announced Best Picture to La La Land, and then it turns out that they read the wrong name, and they had to retract it and say, no, La La Land didn't win. Moonlight won Best Picture. And it was just the chaos, maybe the second chaotic moment that I've ever seen in Oscar history. And at the time, the most chaotic, the craziest thing I've ever seen in Oscars. And to see that chaotic of like, what? I'm confused. How did La La Land who won? And Moonlight won anyways. But anyways, the movie itself, it's obviously, it's a tough movie to watch. It's about tough subject matter. It's about a kid who's living in the Miami poor projects. His mom is a terrible mom who's a like cocaine addict and just horrible. Just he treats her son horrible. He's bullied at school, and he's having trouble with his sexuality. He's like gay, but he's not sure how to in a society which still it's not easy to be gay or whatever in that area. And so he's dealing with all these issues, and you see him growing up from kind of a young kid to being an adult anyways. And yeah, again, I don't have very high because the subject matter is not my favorite kind of subject matter. and there's not a lot of redeeming value in the movie to me, except the third act I thought was actually kind of interesting in that the main character goes from, you know, hating drugs to being a drug dealer at the end. And you know, fighting bullies, and he goes in jail because he taxes bullies, you know, which I was all for him tackling bullies. I hate bullies. And so it's terrible that what happened to the character. It's kind of a tragic story of the character. But I do love when he gets back together with his mom. His mom goes to drug rehab, and they kind of, you know, talk about, you know, their relationship, whatever, and like the terribleness of his growing up, and, you know, try to, you know, she's trying to get some forgiveness out of him for the way she's sorry for the way she treated him, you know. So I did like that part. I love the redemption of that character. I definitely, and then also the storyline between him and his like best friend growing up, and they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they're reconnecting. Like, that was a cool storyline. The movie does end kind of just abruptly to me. It just all of a sudden ends. And it's like, I don't know if I'm totally satisfied with the ending, or that it's not really a happy ending to me. And still, you feel for this character. So yeah, because the subject matter just wasn't my favorite style of movie, though. There are a lot of good performances here, and some good stuff here, but still not high on my list. So it's at 76 on my list, and that is Moonlight. So that is my list for today. 10 movies I'm ranking from 85 to 76 on all the Oscar winners. So please feel free to comment. What do you think of these 10 Oscar movies? Have you seen them? Are they higher on your list than mine? I'd love to read your comments. And just thank you a lot for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. And thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good day.